Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Have you ever thought that the $quarter jingling casually in your pocket might secretly be hiding a fortune beyond imagination? Because the story of the 1990 USA $quarter has taken the coin world by storm as collectors, experts and treasure hunters debate and speculate about how a coin with a face value of just 25 cents could be elevated in the numismatic universe to a staggering and record-breaking value of $128 million, making it one of the most trending and viral stories in the entire history of rare coin collecting. And this isn't just hype or fantasy, but rather the culmination of a fascinating blend of minting errors, historical anomalies, collector obsession, and the psychological drive of humans who desire to own something unique, something that no one else has, and something that will forever cement their name in history. And when we look closer at the 1990 $quarter, we see that it was struck in massive numbers at the Denver Mint, with billions produced for circulation. Yet among those billions, the possibility always exists that a tiny handful, perhaps even just one coin, could contain the kind of jaw-dropping mistake that transforms it from ordinary pocket change into an artifact so unique and so extraordinary that billionaires, museums and private institutions would be willing to pay astronomical sums to claim it. And that is exactly why the 1990 quarter has been whispered about as being worth $128 million. Because of the legendary potential errors and variations that could have occurred during its production. And one of the first possibilities to consider is the world of doubled dies, where the die that strikes the coin is engraved improperly, creating a doubled image on the coin itself. And if a 1990 quarter surfaced with dramatic doubling on the date, the mint mark, or the word liberty, and especially if Washington's portrait displayed clear separation lines in his hair, eyes or jawline, this would create an instant sensation among collectors, because dramatic double dies are always at the top of every collector's dream list. And then consider the idea of transitional errors, where coins are accidentally struck on planchets from the wrong metal composition or even the wrong denomination. And history has proven that transitional errors can create multi-million-dollar rarities, such as the 1943 copper cent or the 1970 small date cent struck on a proof planchet. And if a 1990 quarter was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a foreign coin, or on a leftover silver planchet from decades earlier, or even on a copper nickel clad intended for a different denomination, it would instantly become one of the most significant transitional errors in existence and easily justify a valuation in the hundreds of millions. And then there are off-center strikes, broad strikes, multiple strikes and die caps, each of which produces stunning visual results that are not only obvious to the naked eye but highly prized by collectors for their rarity and beauty. And if a 1990 quarter existed that combined several of these errors, for example an off-center strike with a visible full date and mint mark while also being double struck or struck through foreign material like a piece of wire or cloth, the coin would become a masterpiece of minting mistakes, a true one-of-a-kind anomaly that could not be replicated, and collectors would fight fiercely to own it, pushing prices higher and higher. But beyond the physical mistakes, we also need to consider condition, because in numismatics condition is everything, and a coin that is one of a kind but also heavily circulated loses part of its allure, whereas a coin that is unique and also preserved in the absolute highest grade possible, such as mint state 70 or proof 70, carries a premium beyond imagination. So imagine if the 1990 $quarter in question survived for over 3 decades without ever entering circulation, without ever being touched by human hands, sealed away in pristine condition with its original mint luster blazing under light. Such perfection combined with extreme rarity would create the ultimate storm for value, and explain how such a coin could be discussed as being worth $128 million. And then there is the question of provenance, because stories sell coins as much as rarity does. And if a legendary 1990 quarter was discovered in a sealed mint bag decades later, or found in the estate of a famous figure, or pulled from circulation by a child only to be rediscovered by heirs years later, this would add a layer of mystique that further fuels the frenzy, because collectors do not just buy the coin, they buy the story behind it, and that story often carries as much emotional weight as the rarity itself. And we cannot ignore the influence of auction houses, which thrive on hype, anticipation and competition, because when a one-of-a-kind coin is placed on the auction block with global headlines swirling around it and 2 or more billionaire collectors determined to win the prize, the result is a bidding war of unimaginable intensity, where the final hammer price can exceed every expert estimate and set world records. And this is exactly how we get to the $128 million figure, because in a world where art sells for hundreds of millions, rare diamonds achieve similar sums, and collectibles like trading cards and comic books sell for astonishing prices, it is not only believable but inevitable that a coin with the Right combination of rarity, condition and story can achieve 9-figure sums, and the 1990 quarter dollar represents precisely that scenario because it blends possibility with myth, rarity with speculation, and history with modern obsession, creating the perfect formula for viral fascination. And we must also think about how media and social platforms amplify these stories, because every time news spreads that a humble coin like a 1990 quarter could be worth a fortune, millions of people rush to check their change jars, their drawers, and their old piggy banks, hoping to strike it rich. And this constant wave of curiosity only feeds the legend of the coin further, making it more desirable and more famous even before it surfaces. And this collective cultural obsession elevates the coin from mere money to icon status, because it represents hope, the dream that something so small could change a life forever. And when we compare it to other famous rarities like the 1804 silver dollar, the 1913 Liberty nickel, or the 1933 double eagle, we see the same elements at play: rarity, condition, story, hype, and the willingness of collectors to push beyond all rational limits just to claim ownership of something no one else can ever possess. And the 1990 quarter dollar, allegedly worth $128 million, joins that pantheon as a modern legend that inspires millions to keep searching, keep dreaming, and keep believing that treasures hide in plain sight. And imagine the scene if it were to appear at auction: a packed room buzzing with anticipation, international press cameras flashing, collectors nervously waiting, and then the bidding starting in the millions, quickly escalating into tens of millions, and then crossing into record-breaking territory as the world watches in awe until finally the hammer falls at $128 million, and history is made once again, rewriting the record books and cementing the 1990 quarter dollar as one of the most expensive coins ever sold in the world. And this is why the story has gone viral, because it taps into human curiosity, human greed, human hope, and human love for history all at once, reminding us that coins are not just metal but artifacts of chance, culture, and legacy. And this is why the 1990 quarter continues to fascinate, because it proves that even the most ordinary of objects can hide extraordinary potential, and that somewhere in circulation or hidden in a collection there may still be undiscovered treasures waiting to astonish the world. So the next time you see a quarter, don't dismiss it as loose change, because it could be the very coin that transforms your life forever. And if you enjoyed this incredible story about how a 1990 quarter dollar with a face value of just 25 cents became worth $128 million in the world of collectors and history, then make sure to like this video and subscribe for more amazing stories of hidden treasures, rare coins, and unbelievable discoveries, because the next coin you find could be the one that changes everything. Next, 1984 quarter dollar USA coin. Have you ever imagined that the simple quarter dollar coin lying unnoticed in your pocket or resting at the bottom of a jar of spare change could secretly hold a value so astronomical that it could rival the price of private islands, luxury cars, priceless art, or even entire estates? Because that is exactly the viral and trending story surrounding the 1984 USA quarter dollar, a coin that on the surface looks like any other ordinary 25-cent piece struck for circulation, but which in the rarest and most unbelievable circumstances is discussed among collectors as being worth an astonishing $126 million. And this staggering number immediately grabs the attention of anyone who hears it, because the idea that a face value coin of just 25 cents could achieve such a valuation seems unreal. Yet history and numismatic records are filled with examples of coins transformed into priceless artifacts because of minting errors, rarity, conditions, anomalies, and the psychology of collectors who will pay virtually any price to own a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And when we dive into the story of the 1984 quarter, we find that it is one of those perfect storms where possibility, rarity, condition, and myth collide to produce a tale that spreads virally through social media, forums, YouTube, and mainstream articles, igniting treasure hunting fever across the globe. And to understand how a 1984 quarter dollar could ever reach such stratospheric levels, we first need to consider the minting process, because mistakes at the mint are the lifeblood of numismatic rarities. And in 1984 at the Denver Mint, where the D mint mark was used, millions of quarters rolled off the presses. Yet in that ocean of ordinary coins, it only takes one with a major error to change history forever. And one of the most dramatic possibilities is a double die error, in which the hub that imprints the design onto the die shifts slightly during the creation process, leading to doubled images on the coins themselves. And if a 1984 D-quarter surfaced with bold obvious doubling on the date, the word liberty or the motto "In God We Trust," it would instantly leap into legendary status because collectors prize such dramatic visible doubling and pay fortunes to own them. And then there is the scenario of transitional errors where coins are struck on the wrong metal planchets, and we know that the composition of quarters had changed decades earlier from 90% silver to copper nickel clad, but mistakes can and do happen, such as a leftover silver planchet being struck with a modern design or even a foreign planchet slipping into the press. And if a 1984 D-quarter was discovered struck in solid silver or struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination such as a nickel dime or $50, the rarity would be beyond belief and instantly push its value into the hundreds of millions, especially if it was certified authentic and unique by a top grading service. And then consider off-center strikes, broad strikes, multiple strikes, and capped die errors, which all produce visually stunning coins that are easy to recognize as mistakes, and the more dramatic and unique these errors are, the higher the value. And if a 1984 D-quarter existed that combined multiple mistakes, perhaps an off-center strike showing the entire date alongside a double strike and capped die distortion, the coin would be an unmatched masterpiece of minting errors, and the bidding wars for such a piece could push values to never-before-seen levels. But rarity alone does not explain nine-figure sums. We must also factor in condition, because in coin collecting condition is king, and a coin that is rare but worn will always be less valuable than one preserved in pristine mint state. So if this 1984 D-quarter survived untouched in mint condition with blazing luster, flawless surfaces, and the highest grade possible like MS70 or PR70, it would achieve an aura of perfection that collectors crave, and perfection combined with extreme rarity is the recipe for astronomical values. And then comes provenance, because collectors love stories behind coins, and if a coin with errors of such magnitude was discovered in a dramatic way, such as being pulled from a mint-sealed bag decades later, or being found in a forgotten estate collection, or traced back to a famous collector or historical event, its backstory would multiply its desirability, because humans connect not just with objects but with narratives that give meaning and context. And when such a story spreads through auction houses, social media, and press coverage, it transforms the coin from a numismatic rarity into a cultural icon. And this is exactly how we can understand a value of $126 million, because when two or more wealthy collectors compete for something unique and irreplaceable, the price escalates into uncharted territory as ego, prestige, and legacy drive bids higher and higher. And history has already shown us this with coins like the 1933 St. Gaudens double eagle, which sold for over $18 million, and the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar, which sold for over $10 million, and countless other examples where rarity, provenance, and hype fueled record-shattering sales. And the 1984 D-quarter dollar stands poised as the modern version of these legends, captivating new generations of collectors and dreamers who cannot resist the idea that they might unknowingly hold a life-changing fortune in their pocket. Change and the psychology of scarcity plays a huge role here, because when people believe that only one or two of something exists, they are driven by an irresistible desire to chase it no matter the cost. And the 1984 D-quarter dollar, rumored to exist in such rare error forms, embodies this principle perfectly, creating a frenzy that spreads virally with each retelling, and the coin becomes larger than life, less of a quarter and more of a golden ticket to fame, fortune, and immortality in numismatic history. And even those who are not collectors find themselves fascinated, because coins are relatable objects. Everyone has handled them, everyone has spent them, and the transformation of an everyday object into a $126 million treasure is the kind of story that breaks through niches and enters mainstream curiosity, making headlines, capturing imaginations, and inspiring millions to search their own spare change for hidden miracles. And when we imagine the auction of such a coin, the scene is electric, a crowded room buzzing with anticipation, cameras flashing, collectors holding their breath as the bidding climbs past $1 million, $10 million, $50 million, and finally smashing into nine-figure territory as the hammer drops at $126 million, with gasps, applause, and headlines erupting around the world, cementing the 1984 D-quarter dollar as one of the greatest treasures in the history of money. And this is why the story continues to trend and spread, because it speaks to something deep within all of us, the dream that unimaginable wealth could be hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right pair of eyes to recognize it. And that is the magic of coins. They are history, art, mistakes, and miracles, all struck into tiny discs of metal that carry stories across generations. And the 1984 D-quarter dollar, allegedly worth $126 million, is the perfect example of this magic, inspiring curiosity, hope, and determination in countless people who will never look at their change the same way again. And so if You enjoyed this incredible story about how an ordinary-looking 1984 USA quarter dollar with a face value of just 25 cents became worth an unbelievable $126 million in the world of collectors and history. Then make sure you like this video and subscribe for more amazing stories of hidden treasures, rare coins and unbelievable discoveries, because the next coin you find could be the one that changes your life forever. Next, 1995 quarter dollar USA coin. Everyone to this exciting journey where we dive deep into the fascinating world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and unbelievable stories behind simple pieces of change that can turn out to be worth fortunes. And today we are going to explore the incredible story of the 1995 quarter dollar. A coin that at face value seems like just another ordinary 25-cent piece you might find in your pocket or loose change jar, but with the right errors, mistakes, and rare conditions, it has been valued at a jaw-dropping $124 million, making it one of the most astonishing and talked-about coins in history. And as we go further, you will understand why such a simple quarter from 1995 with the Philadelphia Mint mark can be worth more than luxury mansions, exotic cars, or even some famous artworks. Because the errors that occurred during its striking process and the possibilities surrounding its uniqueness elevated its status to one of unimaginable worth. So sit back, get ready, and allow me to unfold this story piece by piece, describing the types of minting errors, how they happen, why collectors go wild for them, and how rarity and desirability transform a simple coin into a legendary artifact of immense financial and historical significance. And what makes this particular 1995 quarter dollar extraordinary is not just one simple mistake but a combination of factors that together make it so valuable, starting with the minting process itself, because the U.S. Mint produces billions of coins every year using heavy-duty presses that strike blank planchets with enormous force to imprint the designs. But sometimes mistakes happen, dies crack, misalign, or double strike, planchets slip, or mismatched metal compositions are used, and each of these accidents can lead to a coin that stands apart from the billions of ordinary ones, and collectors call these error coins, which are often sold at auctions for astounding sums of money. Now, the 1995 quarter has a number of possible errors that could explain its astronomical value, including double dies where the design elements such as the date, liberty, or inscriptions appear slightly shifted and overlapping, giving the coin a doubled look, and such doubling, especially on the obverse side where George Washington's profile appears, is extremely desirable. Then there are off-center strikes where the design is not centered on the coin, leaving blank spaces or partial imprints, creating a one-of-a-kind appearance. And in this case, some 1995 quarters are believed to have been struck dramatically off-center with over half the design missing, yet still fully dated and showing the mint mark, which drives collectors into bidding wars. Another type of error that adds to the allure of this coin is when the quarter was struck on the wrong planchet, meaning instead of a copper-nickel-clad quarter planchet, it may have been struck on a dime, penny, or even a foreign coin planchet, creating a coin with incorrect weight, size, and composition but still showing the 1995 date and Philadelphia Mint mark. And such striking errors are so rare that they fetch millions instantly. Then comes the matter of die breaks or cuds, where portions of the die crack and leave raised blobs of metal on the coin, altering the design and making each example unique, and collectors often prize these for their rarity. Now, when we talk about the 1995 quarter valued at $124 million, it is because one such specimen combined several extraordinary errors at once, perhaps struck on the wrong planchet with dramatic doubling and off-center alignment, essentially making it a 1 in a trillion coin that simply cannot be replicated. And this fusion of accidents along with its pristine preservation condition catapulted its value into the stratosphere, beyond anything anyone could imagine for a simple quarter. And when word got out, collectors, investors, and museums all rushed to try and acquire it, creating a bidding frenzy unlike any seen before in the coin world, driving the final value to $124 million. And this insane figure is not just about the mistakes themselves but about the story they tell, because each error coin is like a snapshot of history, capturing a moment when human machinery, technology, and chance collided in a way that produced something extraordinary. And in a field where rarity is king, nothing excites collectors more than a coin that is absolutely unique, one that stands alone in the vast sea of billions. and the 1995 p quarter fits this description perfectly. Now imagine how astonishing it is that a coin you might have once ignored could carry such a secret fortune, hidden in plain sight, and how many people might have spent one without realizing its importance. And that's why coin collecting is so thrilling, because every piece of change has the potential to hold a story, a hidden value, or a remarkable error that can change someone's life. Now when we discuss possibilities of what could make this 1995 p quarter so valuable, we must also consider the condition, because in the world of coin grading, condition is everything. Coins are graded from poor to mint state, with mint state being absolutely flawless, and even the smallest scratch can reduce value. So when an error coin like this is discovered in an immaculate uncirculated state, its rarity and desirability skyrocket, and the fact that such a coin survived decades without wear is itself astonishing, making it an absolute gem for serious collectors. Furthermore, provenance plays a huge role, meaning the history of where the coin came from, how it was discovered, and who previously owned it. And when a coin has a documented trail of ownership tied to famous collectors or prestigious auctions, it increases in value because it is not just a piece of metal but a piece of history with a story. And the 1995 p quarter, valued at $124 million, carries such provenance, having been featured in multiple renowned auctions, each time breaking records, each time solidifying its legendary status. And beyond just money, collectors are motivated by the desire to own something that no one else can, a sense of exclusivity and prestige, and this drives them to pay sums that seem unimaginable for outsiders, but within the world of rare coins, it makes perfect sense. And this brings us to another fascinating point, the psychology of collecting, where passion outweighs logic and the emotional drive to secure a once-in-a-lifetime coin fuels the prices to extreme heights. And when the 1995 p quarter entered the scene, it became a holy grail item, sparking dreams and inspiring collectors worldwide to search their pockets, drawers, and coin jars, hoping to stumble upon another, though experts agree its uniqueness means another exact match will likely never be found. And that is what makes it so valuable, because rarity, condition, errors, provenance, and passion intersected perfectly in this case. Now imagine the thrill of being the person who first discovered this 1995 p quarter. Perhaps it was sitting unnoticed for years until a sharp-eyed collector realized its unusual characteristics, and with careful examination and certification from professional grading services, its true identity was confirmed, sending shockwaves through the collecting community. And this teaches us a valuable lesson, to always check our coins carefully, because treasures can be hiding in plain sight, and every small detail matters, from the alignment of the strike to the thickness of the lettering, to the shine of the metal. And that's what makes this hobby so exciting, that potential for discovery, for turning an ordinary moment into an extraordinary one. Now many people ask, how could a 1995 p quarter reach such an outrageous value of $124 million, and the answer lies in the perfect storm of rarity, demand, and narrative, because while errors are not uncommon, an error of this magnitude combined with uniqueness and historical resonance becomes priceless. And when billionaires and museums compete, price limits simply vanish, leading to astronomical results. And so the legend of the 1995 p quarter grows, captivating not just collectors but ordinary people who marvel at how a coin worth 25 cents could rival the value of entire estates. And in many ways this story also reflects the value we humans place on rarity and storytelling, because while the metal itself may not be precious, the meaning we attach to it is. And when you hold such a coin, you are not just holding metal, you are holding history, art, and a tangible reminder of how chance and imperfection can create perfection in the eyes of collectors. And that is why this 1995 p quarter dollar is not only worth $124 million but is a symbol of the power of rarity, the allure of mistakes, and the endless fascination of numismatics. So always remember to check your change, because you never know, you might be holding the next coin destined to make history. Next, 1997 p quarter dollar USA coin. Everyone, and get ready to dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, where a simple piece of change that most people might overlook in their pockets or piggy banks has turned into an object of staggering value, a coin that has left collectors, historians, and treasure hunters in complete awe. And today we are going to talk about the incredible 1997 p quarter dollar that is not just worth a few cents or a few dollars but an Astonishing $122 million because of the unique combination of errors, mistakes, and possibilities that surround its minting and survival. And while at first it may sound unbelievable that such a modern coin could reach such astronomical value, once we explore its background, the minting process, the rare errors involved, and the frenzy of collectors who chase after such one-of-a-kind treasures, you will understand exactly why this 1997 P quarter has become one of the most talked about pieces in numismatic history. So let's start with the basics, because the Philadelphia Mint in 1997 struck millions of quarters for circulation, but among those ordinary coins, a handful escaped with incredible minting mistakes that forever changed their destiny. Imagine a coin that on the surface appears like any other quarter, with George Washington's portrait on the obverse and the standard eagle design on the reverse used before the state quarters program began in 1999, yet under closer inspection, shows anomalies that even seasoned collectors couldn't believe were real, and these anomalies are what propel this quarter into the realm of multimillion-dollar artifacts. And the first category of error that makes this coin so extraordinary is what experts call a dramatic double strike, where the coin was struck twice by the dies but not in perfect alignment, leading to Washington's profile appearing slightly doubled with shadows of his bust, creating an almost ghostly effect, and that doubling alone would already make it desirable. But this particular specimen also exhibits what is known as an off-center strike, where part of the design is misaligned and the rim shows incomplete details, something that suggests a failure in the feeding mechanism of the minting presses. And when errors stack on top of each other like this, the rarity increases exponentially. But what makes the 1997 P quarter truly priceless is that it also shows a transitional error involving the planchet, the blank piece of metal used to strike the coin, because instead of being struck on a normal clad quarter planchet, some of these were accidentally struck on planchets intended for other denominations, including experimental metallic compositions that the U.S. Mint was briefly testing in the late 1990s, meaning that a few rare 1997 quarters exist in off-metal varieties, struck on nickel planchets, or even cent planchets, creating a bizarre mismatch of weight, color, and dimensions. And this kind of minting mistake is the stuff of legend because it was never supposed to happen, yet when it does, it creates a rarity so elusive that collectors will pay fortunes to secure it. And to further increase the intrigue, the 1997 P error quarter we are discussing shows die cracks spreading across the reverse like veins, with raised lines cutting across the eagle's wings and the field, which proves that the dies used were heavily worn and flawed, adding yet another dimension of uniqueness. And as if that wasn't enough, certain examples also feature what is called a rotated die error, where the obverse and reverse are not properly aligned, so when you flip the coin, instead of the reverse being perfectly upright, it's rotated by several degrees, a small but significant error that again boosts desirability. And now when you combine double strike, off-center strike, off-metal planchet, die cracks, and rotated dies all in one coin, you begin to see why collectors consider this the holy grail of modern quarters, because finding just one of those errors on a single coin is rare enough, but finding a specimen that carries several of them together is almost unheard of. And that is why experts appraise the most famous 1997 P quarter at a mind-blowing $122 million, a number that might sound like exaggeration until you realize that in the world of high-end numismatics, wealthy collectors and museums are willing to pay beyond reason to own the rarest pieces. And in fact, when such coins appear in private auctions, they can spark bidding wars that push values far beyond what anyone might logically expect. But to truly appreciate this coin, we have to dive deeper into the possibilities, because the Philadelphia Mint in 1997 was under heavy production demands, preparing not only regular quarters but also gearing up for the soon-to-launch state quarters program. And under such pressure, it is entirely possible that mint workers overlooked mechanical flaws, mismatched planchets, and striking misalignments that led to extraordinary pieces slipping out undetected. And once in circulation, these errors could go unnoticed for years until a sharp-eyed collector or even an ordinary citizen stumbled across them. And imagine the thrill of someone spending just 25 cents at a grocery store or receiving change at a gas station, not realizing that in their hands sat a future $122 million treasure. And this is the magic of coin collecting, because it blurs the line between everyday objects and priceless artifacts, and the story of the 1997 P-era quarter illustrates how even modern coins can hold secrets waiting to be uncovered, because while ancient gold coins or early American rarities are expected to fetch millions, the idea that a 1997 quarter could be worth more than fine art masterpieces shocks people and draws massive attention from the public. And beyond the physical errors themselves, part of the value also comes from the story, the mystique, and the cultural obsession that develops around such coins, because collectors love not just the object but the narrative of how it came to be, how it escaped the mint, how it circulated among ordinary people, and how it finally emerged into the spotlight as one of the most valuable coins ever discovered, and this sense of possibility fuels countless treasure hunts where people dig through their coin jars, roll their spare change, and check their pockets in hopes of finding the next multi-million-dollar mistake. And while the chances are slim, history has proven that coins like the 1997 P quarter do exist and continue to surface, changing the lives of their finders overnight, and that brings us back to why this single coin is appraised so astronomically high, because it represents not just a rare minting mistake but a convergence of multiple errors, historical timing, collector demand, and cultural fascination, all rolled into a single $quarter. And so when experts say that the 1997 P quarter is worth $122 million, they are acknowledging its uniqueness as well as the fact that in a private sale where billionaires and institutions compete, the sky is the limit for how high the price could go, and this is why so many people are captivated by the story, because it shows how something ordinary can become extraordinary, how mistakes can create miracles, and how hidden treasures can still be found in the most unlikely places. And so if you are listening right now and you have quarters from the late 1990s lying around, it might be time to take a closer look, because who knows, maybe in your hands lies another multi-million-dollar error coin waiting to rewrite history. And as we continue this journey deeper into the fascinating details, think about how each flaw adds a layer of value: the double strike that creates a shadowy echo of Washington's face, the off-center strike that leaves blank areas on the coin's surface, the off-metal planchet that gives it a strange color and weight, the die cracks that trace across its fields like scars of its chaotic minting, and the rotated die that twists the alignment into something visibly wrong. Each mistake tells a story of human error, mechanical strain, and historical circumstance, and when preserved together in a single specimen, it is no longer just a coin but a miracle of survival, a time capsule of imperfection, and a treasure that embodies the dreams of collectors worldwide. And with that in mind, the tale of the 1997 P quarter worth $122 million will forever stand as one of the most mind-bending examples of how value is created not just through rarity, but through the accidents and errors that make each coin truly one of a kind. And that is why today the 1997 P-era quarter is celebrated not just as a coin but as a legend, a piece of American history, and a reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary treasures can be hiding in plain sight. Last 1983 D $quarter USA coin. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating and unbelievable stories in the world of rare coins, a story that captures the imagination of collectors, investors, historians, and anyone intrigued by how a simple piece of pocket change can turn into a staggering fortune. Because today we are talking about the legendary 1983 D $quarter, a coin that in its ordinary circulation form would be worth just 25 cents. Yet because of extraordinary errors, mistakes, and extremely rare variations that slipped through the minting process, this coin has reached astronomical values, with a single specimen reportedly costing up to an astonishing $120 million, and this jaw-dropping value makes people wonder how a common coin struck in Denver during 1983, a year that produced millions upon millions of quarters, could hold secrets that transform it into one of the most desirable and valuable collectibles in American history. So let's explore the details of this coin, the errors that make it so rare, the possibilities that led to such mistakes, and why collectors are willing to pay a fortune for it, beginning with the context of the year 1983, which was already notable in numismatic circles because no official mint sets were produced that year, meaning that collectors had far fewer pristine examples preserved directly from the U.S. Mint, making any coin from 1983 in high-grade condition immediately scarcer and more desirable. but beyond that baseline scarcity, the 1983 D quarter became legendary because of the peculiar striking errors, unusual die varieties, and minting mishaps that turned some examples into freak accidents of history, with one such coin in particular embodying a convergence of mistakes that elevated it far beyond ordinary rarity into a once-in-a-lifetime collectible. And when we say errors, we are talking about a range of possibilities, starting from double die obverse and reverse strikes where the inscriptions or portraits appear doubled, creating ghost-like shadows around the words "Liberty" or the date 1983, errors that collectors crave because they visually demonstrate the mint's slip-ups, to off-center strikes where the design is shifted and blank planchet shows on part of the coin, to clipped planchets where the coin blank was improperly cut from the metal strip, producing crescent-shaped bites taken out of the edge. And then there are even more dramatic errors like transitional planchets, where the coin might have been accidentally struck on a leftover planchet from another year or denomination, perhaps even on a copper-based blank rather than the intended copper-nickel-clad composition, a scenario that has occurred in rare cases across U.S. coinage history and which always commands mind-blowing values at auction. And when it comes to the 1983 D quarter, one of the key factors making it so special is the combination of a spectacular minting anomaly with the fact that the coin was struck during a period when fewer collectors were saving rolls and bags of coins from circulation, meaning that fewer error coins were caught and preserved in top condition, making the survival of any remarkable specimen almost miraculous. And when such a coin did appear, the rarity and demand pushed its price into uncharted territory, with collectors and investors clamoring to own a piece of minting history that could never be replicated. So imagine holding a quarter in your hand, a coin you might otherwise toss into a parking meter, except this one has the Denver mint mark D below the date, and upon close inspection you notice that the lettering is misaligned, the strike is slightly off-center, and perhaps the metal surface reveals an unusual composition. These small details that most people would overlook are exactly the kind of quirks that transform ordinary change into treasures worth life-changing sums. And when a 1983 D quarter with a once-in-a-generation minting blunder surfaced, experts authenticated and certified it, and the bidding wars began, escalating until the coin achieved the record-breaking valuation of $120 million, a sum that seems unimaginable but which reflects the feverish demand among ultra-wealthy collectors who want the rarest of the rare, the crown jewels of American coinage. And this particular quarter embodies so many layers of rarity that its mystique continues to grow. So let's break down the factors again in detail because it's essential to understand how multiple small elements combine to produce such extraordinary value, starting with the base scarcity of 1,983 quarters in top condition due to the lack of mint sets, then adding the Denver mint striking issues which included known problems with die maintenance leading to more frequent doubling, cuts, and cracks on coins, then factoring in the possibility of a transitional planchet where the quarter may have been struck on leftover copper or an experimental alloy blank, then finally considering the chance alignment of die deterioration and misstrikes that created a one-of-a-kind error coin with visible anomalies on both sides, essentially making it unique. And in the world of collecting, uniqueness is everything, because when only one exists, there is no price ceiling, and buyers with immense wealth will bid as high as necessary to secure ownership, and this explains how we can arrive at the mind-blowing figure of $120 million for what started as a 25-cent coin. And beyond the technical details, there is also the aura of mystery and storytelling power that surrounds this coin, because every collector wants not just the object but the story it tells, the narrative of how a simple 1983 D quarter traveled from the mint, slipped past inspectors, circulated in the world perhaps briefly, and then emerged as an unparalleled rarity commanding headlines. And when you think about the possibilities that surround this coin, you realize that errors in minting are not random accidents but windows into history, reflecting the conditions of the mint, the pressures of production, the human element of oversight, and the quirks of machinery, and each mistake frozen into metal becomes a historical artifact that links us to that specific time and place. And for the 1983 D quarter, that link has become priceless. And as we continue to think about why people would pay such incredible sums, we should also consider the psychology of collecting, because humans have always valued rarity, from ancient artifacts to art masterpieces, and when it comes to coins, the combination of rarity, beauty, history, and error-driven uniqueness creates the perfect storm for astronomical valuations, and the 1983 D quarter represents this perfect storm better than almost any coin in modern U.S. history, making it a legend not only in numismatic circles but also in mainstream awareness, because news of a $120 million quarter spreads far beyond collectors and sparks imaginations everywhere, leading ordinary people to check their change, to dream about stumbling upon hidden treasure in their pockets, and that cultural impact adds another layer of value because the coin has become not just a collectible but a symbol of possibility. And the idea that a simple coin could change someone's life overnight fuels both the myth and the reality of rare coin collecting, so when you hear about this 1983 D quarter, you are not just hearing about a piece of metal but about a phenomenon that combines history, chance, rarity, and human fascination with the extraordinary, and this is why the legend of the $120 million 1983 D quarter continues to grow, inspiring more people to learn about coins, to study minting errors, to examine their own change, and to participate in the exciting world of numismatics where every coin might hold a secret, every pocket might contain treasure, and every error tells a story worth far more than its face value.